If you dry clothes indoors in winter, you're not just drying laundry. You're releasing a glass of water, sometimes more, straight into your home air. And if that water hits cold walls or windows, it turns into dampness, then smell, then mold. Do this right now. Pick the room where you usually dry clothes and place your palm flat on the coldest outside wall or near a window corner. If it feels noticeably colder than the air, that surface is a condensation magnet. Fix it in 1 minute. Move the drying rack at least an arm's length away from that cold wall. Raise the clothes higher if you can, and do a short airflow burst. Crack a window for 2 to 3 minutes, then close it. That quick vent dumps humid air without chilling the whole room. Today you're going to learn a simple, repeatable winter setup that stops indoor drying from turning your home into a damp box. The hidden trigger most people miss, the monastery-style placement that dries faster without machines, the heat habit that warms the air path instead of wasting heat, and a no-mold blueprint you can run every week. By the end, you'll know exactly where to dry, how to vent, and which mistakes create mold even in clean homes. Now let's start with the real trigger, because once you see it, you stop blaming the laundry and you start controlling the room. The trigger is not the clothes. If where wet air sits, a typical load releases a lot of water into the air as it dries, and indoors that moisture doesn't disappear, it moves, it spreads, and it hunts the same 3 things every time. Cold surfaces, still air, and time. That's why 2 homes could dry clothes indoors, and only one grows mold. The difference is where the moisture lands, and whether it gets trapped there long enough to form an invisible film on cold walls and glass. Do a quick proof tonight. Hang a small towel or t-shirt in your usual spot. Then 1 hour later, take a flashlight and shine it across the wall behind the rack at a shallow angle. If you see a faint sheen, patchy darkening, or the wall looks slightly alive compared to the surrounding paint, you're watching condensation build. That's not mold yet. That's the invitation. Fix it immediately by moving the rack away from the wall and out of the coldest corner of the room. Corners feel out of the way, but corners are where air moves the least, and still air is a moisture trap. Now do the second test in 10 seconds. Stand where the rack sits and feel the air at chest height. Then feel the air near the floor. If the floor air feels cooler and heavier, you have layering, and that cold layer is exactly where wet air settles and meets cold baseboards and exterior walls. That's why mold often shows up at the bottom of a wall, even when the room feels fine. The fix is not blasting heat. The fix is lifting the drying zone upward and exporting wet air in short bursts before it is time to stick. Here's the mistake that causes most indoor mold from laundry: the sealed room idea. People shut doors, shut windows, and try to keep all the heat in while the clothes dry, but what they really build is a humid chamber. Warm air holds more water, so the room feels okay at first. Then that warm, wet air hits a cold wall or window and dumps water into it. You didn't solve humidity, you concentrated it. The honest rule is controlled ventilation, not constant ventilation. You don't need to freeze the room. You need brief air changes that remove moisture before it settles. So run this simple routine while clothes are drying. Every 30 to 40 minutes, crack a window or open a door to a cooler corridor for 2 to 3 minutes, then close it. If it's brutally cold outside, do 1 minute instead of 2, but keep the rhythm. Watch your window glass for feedback. If it fogs during drying, you're already paying the price, and after a short vent, the fog should reduce. If it doesn't, your rack is too close to cold surfaces or your load is too dense. Now lock the moisture into one controlled place instead of letting it wander through your home. Choose one drying room for winter, not the coldest room and not the quietest room, but the one you can control. You want a window you can crack for short bursts, a door you can open to create a quick cross flow, and enough space to keep clothes away from walls. Put the rack near the center of that room, not against an outside wall, not tucked into a corner. Then do one last honesty check overnight. Leave a paperback book or a folded paper towel on the floor near the rack. If it feels even slightly damp in the morning, that spot is collecting moisture and your drying zone is too low or too close to a cold boundary. Raise the rack, move it, or change the room. And here's the comfort bonus that makes this worth doing even if you never see mold. Laundry humidity doesn't only grow mold, it makes a home feel colder because damp air and damp surfaces steal heat from your body. When you control moisture, rooms feel warmer at the same thermostat setting, windows fog less, and that heavy winter air starts to disappear. In the next section, You'll copy a monastery-style drying setup that uses height, spacing, and an air path so clothes dry faster with less moisture landing on walls. And I'll give you a simple placement rule you can use in any room in under 10 seconds. Do this first before you move a single garment. Stand in your drying room and face the window. Now imagine a straight line from that window to the door. That line is your air path. Your drying rack should live on that path, not tucked into a corner, not pressed against an outside wall, and not kissing a heater. The monastery idea is simple. You don't dry clothes by warming the clothes. You dry clothes by giving wet air a way to leave. If wet air can't leave, it doesn't matter how warm the room is. You just get a warm, damp box. So the setup is 3 rules you can remember without thinking. Dry higher than you normally do, leave real space between every garment, and move wet air toward an exit in short bursts. Start with height, because height changes the physics fast. Most people dry clothes too low, right in the coldest layer of the room. Low drying means damp air sits near baseboards and cold walls, and moisture lands where mold loves to start. Monasteries use height because warm air rises, and even in a chilly building there's usually a warmer layer higher up. That's free heat you can borrow. Raise your drying zone even 1 foot and you'll feel the difference. Put the rack on 2 sturdy chairs. Use a tabletop rack on a counter. Hang a line higher than you think you need. The goal is simple. Keep wet fabric out of the cold floor layer. Here's your quick proof. Touch a thick item like jeans and a thin t-shirt after the same amount of time. If everything feels equally slow, you don't have a more heat problem. You have a wrong height and weak airflow problem. Now fix the second mistake, overcrowding. If clothes touch, they share moisture. The outside can feel dry while the inside stays damp for hours, and that's how you get that weird smell the next day, even when the fabric felt fine at night. Use the knuckle rule. If you can't fit your knuckles between garments, the rack is too dense. Give every item a gap. If you don't have space, dry in 2 waves. Half a load that dries fast is safer than a full load that drags on for 8 hours and keeps the room wet the whole time. Time is part of mold risk. Longer drying equals longer moisture exposure on walls and glass. Now copy the monastery 1 controlled room rule. Old buildings didn't treat every room equally. They had 1 core space that was warmed more consistently and managed more deliberately than the rest. Laundry didn't wander. It dried where the building could handle it. Your copy is the same. Choose 1 drying room for winter and stop drying in bedrooms or cold and used spaces. Bedrooms are often the least ventilated in winter, and they're where you breathe for 8 hours. Drying there is how you get heavy air, morning cough, and window fog that you never connect to laundry. Dry clothes where you can control airflow quickly, not where you want quiet. Now, make the setup actually work with a short vent rhythm. Not a constant open window, not a frozen room, a rhythm. Every 40 minutes, crack a window or open the door for 1 to 2 minutes, then close it. If it's mild, do 2 to 3 minutes. If it's freezing, do 1 minute, but keep the timing. You're not airing out the whole house. You're exporting wet air before it deposits onto cold surfaces. Use your window as feedback. If the glass fog is decreasing after vents, you're winning. If fog thickens, you're losing. And the fix is always the same 3 levers. Move the rack toward the center and onto the air path, reduce density, or vent a little sooner. Here's a powerful old-world upgrade if you can copy even part of it, drying high near the ceiling. Old homes use pulley racks for a reason. Warm air collects up high, and floor space stays clear. Even if you don't install a ceiling pulley, you can copy the function. Use a doorway rod. Use a shower rod in a bathroom you can vent. Run a line higher across a utility room. The key is to stop drying at knee height. Drying higher borrows the warm layer and pulls moisture away from the damp floor layer. And there's a second benefit. Wet fabric up high can help create gentle circulation. Warm air rises, meets cooler damp air near the clothes, and the room starts to move air naturally. You don't need a fan to get movement. You need geometry. Now avoid the trap that feels smart but backfires. Don't park the rack directly in front of a heater. It can dry the outside fast, but it also dumps a lot of moisture into the air right where you sit, and that warm, wet plume often travels straight to cold window glass and condenses. Instead, keep the rack near the room's warmth, but not hugging the heat source. Give it space so warm air can pass through the clothes, then move away. Think warm air through the rack, not heat blasting at one side. And here's the one action that cuts drying time for thick fabrics without turning your day into a ritual. Flip heavy items once. Just once. Halfway through drying, flip jeans, hoodies, and towels so the inner seams face outward. Thick seams hold moisture longer than flat fabric. Expose the seams, and the item finishes faster. Shorter drying time means the room stays humid for less time, and that is mold prevention even when everything looks clean. If you only remember one placement rule, remember this. Your rack should be off the cold wall, off the corner, on the air path, and higher than your waist if possible. That's the monastery setup in one sentence. Do that, and indoor drying stops feeding your walls. Next, we'll turn this into a weekly blueprint you can run without thinking, starting with the one step that removes the most moisture before the rack even comes out. Most people use heat the wrong way. They try to heat the clothes or heat the room, then they keep everything sealed so the warmth doesn't escape. The result is predictable. Warm, wet air builds up, then it hits the coldest surface in the room and dumps water into it. So the monastery heat trick is different. You don't chase temperature. You control where the warm air goes and where the wet air exits. Do this simple setup in your drying room. Find a warm source in that room. A radiator, a heater, even a warm interior wall, and find a cold target, usually a window or an outside wall. Now imagine a path between them. Your goal is to let warm air pass through the rack, and then leave the room in short bursts before it is time to stick to cold glass. That's the whole game. Here's your first practical move. Don't put the rack directly in front of the heater. Instead, place it a few feet away so warm air can flow through the clothes, not blast one side. If the rack is too close, you create a wet plume that goes straight to the window and condenses. If it's slightly back, the warm air mixes, passes through fabric and spreads, and your short vents actually export moisture instead of just redistributing it. Now to the quick proof that tells you whether heat is helping or hurting. Look at the window glass while clothes are drying. If fog builds quickly, your wet air is landing on the coldest surface. So change one variable first. Move the rack farther from the window and farther from the outside wall, closer to the center and onto the air path. Then do one short vent for 1 to 2 minutes. If fog reduces, you're controlling the room. If it keeps building, you're either overdensing the rack or drying too low in the cold floor layer. Fix placement and spacing before you touch the thermostat. Now here's the second heat mistake that creates mold even in warm homes. Heating the room, but leaving cold surfaces cold. Mold doesn't care if the air feels comfortable. Mold cares about cold corners and cold walls that collect moisture like a sponge. So if your outside wall is the cold magnet, stop feeding it. Keep the rack an arm's length away and never dry in the tight corner next to that wall. If you want a simple upgrade that costs nothing, keep curtains and blinds slightly open while drying. A closed curtain over a cold window creates a hidden cold pocket where wet air gets trapped and condenses. You think you're insulating. You're actually creating a damp cave. Give that surface a chance to breathe. Now use a gentle warm then vent rhythm that keeps the room comfortable without trapping humidity. Warm the room normally for 10 to 15 minutes, just enough to get air moving and raise the room's base temperature. Then do a short vent, 1 minute if it's very cold outside, 2 minutes if it's mild. Close it. Repeat every 40 minutes. This keeps wet air from piling up, but doesn't chill the whole house. If you have an extractor fan in a bathroom or a kitchen, use it like a chimney. You don't need it running all day. Run it during your short vents. You're giving wet air an exit route. That's what older buildings had naturally through gaps and chimneys, and that's why they could dry laundry without turning rooms into mold boxes. Now do one more quick check so you know you're not overdoing heat. Put your hand near the rack at chest height. If the air feels warm, but the room still feels heavy, that's trapped humidity. Vent beats more heat. More heat without venting just makes the room hold more water, and that water still ends up on cold surfaces later. Keep the rules simple. Heat helps when it moves air through the rack and out of the room. Heat hurts when it turns the room into a sealed, humid chamber. Once you understand that, you stop chasing warmer and you start chasing drier. Next, we turn everything you've learned into a weekly blueprint you can run without thinking, starting with the one step that removes the most moisture before the rack even comes out. Here's the blueprint you can run every winter week without guessing. It's a sequence. Follow the sequence and you get 2 wins at once. clothes dry faster, and the room stays clean. Step 1 happens before the rack even comes out. Extraction. Your washer spin cycle is not a detail. It's the first line of mold prevention. Grab a thick item like a hoodie sleeve and squeeze. If water runs or the fabric feels heavy and dripping, you need a stronger spin or a second spin. Run it again. That one extra spin can remove a huge amount of water that would otherwise end up in your walls and windows. Step 2 is shake and shape. Right before you hang each item, snap it once hard. You're opening the fabric and breaking folds that trap moisture. Then hang it so the thick seams are exposed to air. Seams are where smell starts because seams stay damp longest. Step 3 is placement. Put the rack on the air path, away from outside walls, away from corners, and as high as you can without making it unsafe. If you can raise the rack even a foot, do it. Keep it higher than waist level if possible. Then apply one spacing rule, hand width gaps. If clothes touch, they share moisture. If you can't slide your hand between garments without pushing fabric, it's too dense. Dry in 2 waves. Faster drying is safer drying because time is part of mold risk. Step 4 is load strategy. Don't treat thick and thin like they're the same. Thin items dry fast and dump moisture early. Thick items dump moisture for hours. If everything is mixed, the room stays humid longer than it needs to. So either dry in 2 stages, or at least put thick items on the outer edges of the rack where airflow is stronger and thin items toward the center. Step 5 is the vent rhythm. This is where most homes lose. Use short vents on a timer. Every 40 minutes, crack a window or open the door for 1 to 2 minutes, then close it. If it's mild, do 2 to 3 minutes. If it's freezing, do 1 minute but keep the rhythm. You're exporting wet air, not cooling the room. Use the window as feedback. If glass fog builds, vent sooner or move the rack farther from cold surfaces. Step 6 is the one flip that matters. Thick items get one flip halfway through. Jeans, hoodies, towels. Turn the inner seam outward, rehang, and stop touching it. One flip cuts drying time more than most heat hacks because it exposes the wettest parts to air. Step 7 is the finish rule. Don't trap moisture at the finish line. If a thick item feels cool to the touch, it often means evaporation is still happening inside the fabric. Don't fold it yet. Give it 10 minutes in open air after it feels dry, then fold. That single 10-minute buffer prevents the closet smell that people mistake for musty rooms. Now do a 30-second room check after each drying session. Walk to the coldest corner and smell near the baseboard. Then smell near the window frame. If you get a damp, earthy note, you're depositing moisture somewhere. Next time, move the rack closer to the center, reduce density, and vent earlier. Don't fight the symptom later with sprays. Fix the geometry and the timing. And if you want a simple habit you'll actually remember, keep 4 words in your head. Center, space, vent, finish. Center means off the walls and out of corners. Space means gaps between clothes. Vent means short air dumps. Finish means 10 minutes of open air before folding. Do those 4 things and indoor drying becomes boring, which is exactly what you want. Because monks didn't avoid mold with gadgets. They avoided it with simple rules repeated until they were automatic. And when your laundry routine becomes automatic, your home stops paying the price. Indoor drying isn't the problem. Trapped moisture is. Keep the rack centered, keep real space between clothes, vent in short bursts, and never fold while fabric still feels cool. Do that, and winter laundry stops turning your home into a damp box.